what the lemaisa of these two menagim are. Shalom aleichem, quite a wrap. Does the Rav hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
I do, and we prepared the ilam on the sugya of the matzahs Ashkenazim versus the matzahs of Weiss of the Sfardim, quite a Rav.
Okay, so I have two apologies before we start the shir today. Apology number one, I know I'm a bit late. And apology number two, I'm going to be a bit early. This is the first day of Beilas Manim. I started off this day with a shir in Beit Shemesh. Do you hear me and see me, my friends?
We do.
That's really perfect.
Okay, so I started off the day with a shir in Beit Shemesh. From there, I went to Tifrach. 4:30, I gave a chabura. And then I ran to Mincha, and I still give another shir in Beit Shemesh tonight, and then 11 o'clock another Zoom chabura. So first day Beilas Manim, always very busy, but we'll try to, I hope, give a good shir. So the topic we will be discussing today is the form of matzahs, thick matzahs versus thin matzahs. So B'nai Ashkenaz, whether you eat hot matzahs or machine matzahs, our matzahs are rekikin dakin. That is minig Ashkenaz, as we find in the Ramah, Tov Samach Siv Dalet. Maybe we'll have it on our screen. Tov Samach Siv Dalet and Hilchos Pesach. The Ramah writes, our minig is to have thin matzahs, rekikin dakin. So the Mechaber and the Ramah, both in this synonym, deal with the question, how do matzahs look? Let's start off with the Mechaber, with the Shulchan Aruch.
We're going there. We're going there. There we go. Okay, Dalet.
Okay, Siv Hey, that's Siv Dalet. We need to turn a page, and let's start off chronological order. We start off with the Shulchan Aruch. Ein oisen bepesach pas avot tefach. The Torah doesn't bring this halacha. And the source of this halacha is the Sugi of Pesachim Lamed Vav Omed Beis. And it's not clear what the maskara of the Gemara is. The Torah brings that you're allowed to make Pesach even very thick matzahs. And the Beis Yosef wonders, Rabbeinu Yeruchim, he concludes from that very same Sugi of Pesachim Lamed Vav that you should not make a matzah ba'oivi tefach. So, you know the various different shiurim of tefach. Is tefach 10 centimeters or 8 centimeters? Obviously, like your fist, that's a tefach, quite thick matzahs. So the Beis Yosef paskins, based on Rabbeinu Yeruchim and some other Rishonim, ein oisin bepesach pas avo tefach. The Ramon Siv Dalet, and we go back a page, the Ramon brings that our minig Ashkenaz is to make rekikin dakin. Rekikin dakin is thin matzahs. One might conclude, just like our matzahs, well, maybe, but let's have a look at the Ramah. Could we turn a page back and have a look what the Ramah says? As we saw, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber says that you're not allowed to make matzahs ba'oivi tefach. But let's have a look what the Ramah says. And that's just turning back one page. And the reason I'm waiting for the screen is, Yesh lasis amatzes rikikin velo pas avo kishar lechem ki ein harikikin memaharim lahachamitz. So, what is rekikin? How thick are they allowed to be? So the lashon of the Ramah is, Yesh lasis matzes rekikin v'loi ovo kishar lechem ein harikikin memaharim lahachmitz. So the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotten Tet Zayin. Could we have the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotten Tet Zayin? So when the Mechaber writes rekikin, Hainu, here we are. Av dem Mevua Besifei de Pochas Metefach Muta Lasois, Makol Mokom Nochen Yoisa Lasas Lechatchela, Rekiken Daken. How thick are those Rekiken? Shar Tzion, Siv Cotton, Chav Beis. No, back. Okay, Shar Tzion also doesn't give a shiur. I thought that the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Beis Hillel, Eliyahu Rabbah. Was I mistaking? Did I have the wrong? So, Beis Hillel quoted in Eliyahu Rabbah that ka'oivi etzba, not tefach. The Mechaber says should be less than a tefach, and that's okay. So the Beis Hillel says no. Bezman Talmud or Iktana b'yachshav nera. Okay, second.
Go down. Go back to the bottom. There we go.
Here it is. V'nera shu ka'oivi etzba kenog b'matzis tzorchin u'ledina. So the Nati of the Beis Hillel, and he's quoted by the Eliyahu Rabbah and many other Achronim, ka'oivi etzba. So the Ramo writes, Rekikin v'lo avo kishar lechem. So to me it is quite clear that even the Ramo doesn't mean the super thin matzahs like the ones we eat. And this just cannot be. Let's have a look in Siman Tov Ayin Hey Sif Zayin. We're still in Hilchos Pesach. V'ramo Tov Ayin Hey Sif Zayin. Here we are. Nagu lasois sholosh matzos shel seder. So you know how much an isaron is? An isaron is 1.6 kilogram. Our matzahs, 1.6 kilogram is about 30 matzahs. And then Amor writes, our minig is to make the 3 matzahs out of an isaron. That means that the matzahs that Amor writes, that is our minig, and I just want to note once again, it is the same Ramo that writes in Siman Tov Samech. We make rekiken, v'loy ovo kishar lechem. So a sorin, 3 matzahs. That means 1.5 kilogram for 3 matzahs. Their matzahs obviously were 10 times the size of our matzahs. I think everybody would understand that it's impossible that the matzahs had a diameter and they were 10 times as big as our matzahs. I mean, their homes weren't huge homes, their tables weren't huge tables. I mean, we assume they lived in more cramped quarters than we could afford today. So it's impossible that their matzahs were 10 times as wide as our matzahs. So it must be that their matzahs were far thicker than our matzahs. Let's have a look at the Mishnah Berurah Tov Ayin Hey. Maybe I confused Tov Samach with Tov Ayin Hey. Tov Ayin Hey, Sikot Mem Vav. We just need to scroll down. Mishnah Berurah Sikot Mem Vav. Here we are. Nagu lasois, I am a safer base measure, a fat bekalamene. Overcome a koimois kayom, nishtakeya haminhag. Why is the base man a fatbek? Not because he's afraid of chometz. He writes that we need to try to make it as less similar to kochim. Shelo yavo lachlif bekochim. Isoron was lechem aponim. Was from Isoron. But the Beis Meir doesn't complain that it's korov lahachmitz. So obviously, their matzahs must have been thicker than our matzahs, because otherwise How could you have 3 matzahs from 1.6 kilogram, which is a isoroin? Choik Yankov, Siv Cotton Chav Vav, quotes Mahari Weil, and he says, Noyagim Lasis Uisik Sas Yoisemi Isoroin.
In the second part. It's in the second part. No, freeze it there, Pesach. Freeze it, Pesach, freeze it there. Keep it going.
Okay.
Bring it up, Pesach, bring it up. The other way, sorry.
Let me look. Could we? I don't see Steve Cotton.
This is the old print. The Chav Vav is probably Chav Zayin. We probably have to go home.
Let's have a look. Let's scroll up and let's see. Okay, here I see it. And see if Cotton Chav Vav. And yeah. Kosev Oid Mahariv. That's the Marivail, one of the later Rishoni Ashkenaz. Matzah Shniya, Yase Yoise Gedoyle Ma'acherois, Lefi Shekol Echod Ve'echod Tzorach Lechol Memeno, Shnei Chatichas Echod B'Shas HaMoitzi Ve'echod La'afi Koibon. And what he means to say is that from the middle matzah, the Bala Bayis needs to give 2 zeisim to each of the family members. L'matzah u'la'afi koibon. So how would he give for the family members 2 zeisim from the matzah and tzois? So the Chok Yankov writes, all the 3 matzahs together are isoroin, but the middle one should be slightly bigger than the others. In our matzahs, we have 2 different shurim. According to the Chazon Ish, it's about 60% of a matzah is a kazayis. Reb Chaim Noah, 45% of a matzah is a kazayis. So one matzah would have maximum 2 zeisim for the balabayis. So how does the Chok Yankov expect from the matzah and tzois? We should give 2 zeisim for each member of the family, if their matzahs were the same as our matzahs. Minhoge chasam soifer. I think I saw it on the screen when we started this year. Minhoge chasam soifer. Do we have it? Or we don't have it? Here we are. I saw it a moment ago. Perik Yud, not the Chuvas Chasam Sofer, but the Minhageh.
It's there earlier. Just scroll back earlier.
Screen just a moment ago.
It's the paragraph for the Beis Hill.
Here we are. No. We were there a moment ago. It keeps on disappearing from our screen. We were there a moment ago. Here we are. Lokach Gimel Matzes. Elyono emet achtoine v'apruso be'emtze v'birach hamoitzi u'piras kazayis lekol echod min ha'misubim. Ipiras kazayis lekol echod min ha'misubim. And that is from the middle matzah. Let's say achakach lokach ha'pruso u'piras oid kazayis lekol echod ve'echod. So from the matzah pruso, from the middle matzah, he gave a kazayis to each of the family members. Probably there were a few people sitting around the table. There's some soifer, his rebbitzin, children, probably some talmidim. So how from the matzah prusa did he give a kazayis to each and every one of the family members? So what is clear to me? First and foremost, from the Ramah, from the Chok Yankov, from the Chsam Sofer, their matzahs were thicker and softer than our matzahs. There's no other way to understand these sources. Toises Psochim Kuf Tez Zayin Amedalef. There's a huge discussion in the Poskim. How and when are we Boitseya? And how do we handle the 2 different matzahs? The top, the middle, 2 different brochas. We say Moitzi Matzah, we say Berchas HaMitzvah, Alachilas Matzah, and we also say Berchas HaMoitzi. Do we say the same matzah? Do we don't? So Tosfos says, just like all year round, you're B'tseya first before the brocha, and then you are mafrid after the brocha. And that is our minhag. Every Suda Shabbos, we cut into the challah before the brocha, and then we say the brocha and Lechem Mishnah, and then we're mafrid. You separate one piece from the other. And Tosfos says we do the same with the matzah. But our matzahs that are hard, you can't be Moitzeya and then mafrid. So it's clear from Tosfos that, once again, the matzahs were softer than our matzahs. Softer and also thicker. To me, it was always a pshitus, and I was so happy to find this in Kaf HaChaim. I think the fundamental reason our matzahs are so thin has to do with economics and not with chumras, not with kashrus. So the Rosh in Perek HaRav Pesachim writes, Anshe Masa Chasidim v'Tmimim, each of them bakes matzahs for Pesach in his own home. Because the Gemara says, Ma darkei shaloni. It's on the Gemara, right on our screen, the first line. Davar achar, ma darkei shaloni, hu masik ve'ishtoi oifo, af kanami, hu masik ve'ishtoi oifo. The Rosh on the spot writes that this is the source of Chasidim v'Tmimim v'Anshe Maisa. They bake matzahs at home, and they baked matzahs on Yom Tov, they baked matzahs on Chol HaMoed, and everybody in his own home baked matzahs. But since matzahs became a huge industry, and nobody bakes matzahs at home, and to supply matzahs for hundreds and thousands of Jews, the only way to do it is to start baking matzahs many months before Pesach. And if those matzahs will be soft, like bread, oivi tefach, oivi etzba, if they're soft, they'll either become as hard as a rock, or they'll rot, or they'll become, mildew or ovesh. There's no way to keep matzahs fresh weeks or months and edible. So it is out of necessity, financial necessity, that we had to make these super thin matzahs that are crisp and hard, like crackers. And they could be preserved for many, many months.
How did the Sephardim do it? Quite a rough, Taka. They have in Eretz Yisrael this huge population of Sephardim. So how do they do it?
Yes, so the Sephardim don't do it many months before. Well, I don't really know. Many Sephardim today eat the thin matzahs like the Ashkenazim. This is a minhag which becomes less common even in Sephardi communities. So the Sephardim definitely are makel, but more and more Sephardim eat the same matzahs as Ashkenazim do. Generally speaking, the trend in the frum world is that Sephardim are becoming more and more like Ashkenazim. I don't know whether that's positive or not, but definitely when we didn't have freezers, so going years back, there was no real refrigeration and there wasn't freezers. So I think 100 or 200 years ago, it is obvious that there were huge matzah factories, and that what brought about the big controversy about machine matzahs, because matzah baking became an industry. And I think that was much later than the minhag of the Rosh, that everybody, bake matzahs in his own home. So the primary reason we started making these super thin matzahs, I think, was out of financial necessity. So let us go back to my basic argument. The Machaber writes, you could have thick matzahs, they should not be thick a tefach. According to the Tur, you could have even more than a tefach. Shechanov paskins a tefach. The Ramo says, Rakik and Dakin. But the Ramo doesn't specify what is Rakik and Dakin. We saw some Achronim say the Beis Hillel, Rakik and Dakin is Ge'etzba. Well, an etzba is an etzba. It's like the thickness of your thumb. And we brought 4 rayas gedolos. Betzia v'yachet achafro de Toisvis, the Ramo, Isoroin, Chok Yankev. The middle matzah should be bigger because you need to give 2 zaysim for your family members. Minhogat Sam Soifer. From the matzah prusa, he gave a kazayas to each family member. So either the Sam Soifer was extremely makel by kazaysim, but even then it would be strange to have a kazayas from the matzah prusa for all the guests and family members. But either we prove from this Sofer that he was extremely makel b'shir kazayas, even by matzah, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa. You know, by matzah, we're more machmir b'shiurim than any time else, because it's the only achilas mitzvah which demands a kazayas, which is men Torah, sukkah and matzah, leil alav shel chag sukkahs and leil alav shel chag matzahs. But nevertheless, I think from all these sources, it is obvious that their matzahs were thicker than our matzahs. So in my tshuvas, I think it's Chela Gimel Simemem Dalet Simemem Hey. I wrote 2 tshuvas about this, and one tshuva was written to a person that had colitis. Colitis is a very nasty illness in the digestive system, and this person that had colitis just couldn't b'shum punim b'oifen eat these dry matzahs. It caused him terrible pain and suffering, and he could eat the soft matzahs. But he was an Ashkenazi ben Torah, and you know, I paskin for him. You could eat Sephardi matzahs. Make a Toras Nedorim, even though by basic halachic definition, I don't think there was a need to make a Toras Nedorim, because a Toras Nedorim is required when you just want to stop the minhag without any halachic justification. But in a situation in which you can't eat dry matzahs because you're a chayla, and soon we will discuss the halacha of a chayla. In another few minutes, we'll get there. So if you have a halachic justification to eating the softer matzahs, you don't need a Toras Nedorim. But nevertheless, l'chumra, I said, do a Toras Nedorim. Now, where is my problem? My problem is, Shuvas Chasam Soifer Simen Kuf Chof Aleph. Mahari Osad Kuf Nun Zayin. Mame Mordechai Simen Lamed Beis. These were 3 great achronim. Shuvas Chasam Soifer, we had it on our screen a moment ago.
So go to the Chasam Sofer, please. It's
Shuvas Chasam Sofer.
right there.
Here we are. Netally. Okay, the Chasam Sofer deals with the question, there wasn't enough wheat. There was a shortage in wheat. And people wanted to make matzahs from corn or kidneys. And the Chasam Sofer is makel. Even though it would be kidneys, but mukim tzorech gadol, gedolim were makel by kidneys when there was a famine or let's say the choyle. But the Chasam Sofer is afraid people will confuse these matzahs with kosher matzahs. Kidneys is not dogon. You can't be yotze matzah. So the Chasam Sofer suggests those matzahs that are made of corn or rice should be thick, so nobody would confuse them with matzahs ksheros. So let's have a look at the paragraph in the Chasam Sofer. Nerali, toiv lasas gedem achodesh shelo yavo litois lasas me matzah shel mitzvah. But it says v'yedei chevoson shelo lasas rekikin klal ki em ovim k'moy shekorim raib matzahs. I don't know what raib, what this word means, but obviously in Yiddish and German, the thick matzahs were called raib matzahs. V'narviach oid. Ki raib matzahs wasuyin mekem achitem rabo hamachshelo kima ovyom loynefo yufo uberov kehilas Ashkenaz gazru aleim b'charomis shelo la'asoison v'toiv lahati raib matzahs mekem akidniyos she'en b'olei dechimus u'matzahs ova mo'ela lo yischalfu la'olam b'matzahs shel mitzvah she'enam nasem elo rekikim dakim. So the Chasam Sofer writes, if we need to be matter kidneys because there's a shortage in wheat then we should make the kidneys matzahs thick, because we don't use thick matzahs. And this is a powerful line. Berav kehilas Ashkenaz gazlu aleim b'charamois shelo la'asoison. I'm not aware, I don't think we have those charamois, but the Sam Sofer writes, Rav kehilas Ashkenaz gomu b'charamois shelo la'asoison. And we find a similar tshuva in Mari Asad. He was a contemporary of the Sam Sofer, one of the greatest poskim of that generation. He was a Talmud of Rav Mordechai Bennett. And one generation later, Shalas Tshuvas Mama Mordechai, Siman Lamed Beis. Mama Mordechai was the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yosef Shonatans and the Shoel HaMeshiv, Rav Mordechai Zev Ettinger. And these three Ashkenazi Gedolim write, it is our minig not to use rai matzahs, rekikin dakin. And they're talking about matzahs which are similar to the ones we use, maybe slightly thicker. So I'm a bit confused how this Tshuva Sam Sofer fits in with Minhagei Sam Sofer we quoted just a few moments ago, that the Sam Sofer from the Matzah and Tzois gave a kazayis to everybody sitting around his table. So maybe even when the Sam Sofer writes, Berov kehilas Ashkenaz gazlu b'charamois shelo la'asoison, still, his matzahs weren't as super thin as ours are. Anyway, so this person suffered from colitis. And it's a huge question. Does a person have to fall ill to be mekayim and mitzvahs asay? We'll discuss that question in a few moments. But because, after all, matzahs that are ka'oivi etzba are not chometz. Nobody says they're osur. Even the Sam Sofer says, Gozru v'charomesh shelo la'asoison. But he doesn't write, it's chometz, rabo hamachshela. But today, in our day and age, when the Sephardi matzahs have a super good hechsher, they're Yirei Shemayim, they have choshev rabbonim, and they give a hechsher on those matzahs. So they're definitely not chometz. Going back 200 years, I think there was less supervision. It was more an open market. So Berav kehilas Ashkenaz gazlu shelo la'asoison. But even the Sam Sofer doesn't say that they're osur ba'achila. And especially today, if you have Sephardi matzahs, which are softer, and they have a super good hechsher that you would rely on all year round, why wouldn't you rely on the matzahs? So our minig is to eat rekik and dakin. But we can't say the minig for a choyle that has colitis is to eat rekik and dakin. So I think, an Ashkenazi, I have a member in my shul, he always likes to be ipche mestaber. In every kehillah we have a few of those. When everybody says yes, they need to say no. And they always like to pull the line to the limit and be different than everyone else. So I have a member in my shul, and every year he nags me, I want to eat Sephardi matzahs. Listen, I'm not going to throw you out of shul. You're still going to get an aliyah in my shul, but you shouldn't eat Sephardi matzahs. You're an Ashkenazi, and the Sam Sofer raised Berav kehilas Ashkenaz gazlu b'charamois. But I don't think we could say the minig was for a chayla not to eat Sephardi matzahs and better not to eat matzahs at all? No. So me'ikar adin, I didn't think he needs a Toras Nedorim, but I did recommend a Toras Nedorim. So now I want to take a few minutes of your time to discuss a broader question. Chayla she'ein bo sakana. So this person has colitis. He's not going to die if he eats matzahs, but it'll cause extreme pain. And more than any other time of the year, the question of choyle b'kiyam mitzvahs is super relevant to Pesach. Because it is only Pesach that we need to eat and drink, given macholis and mashke. So, some people cannot b'shum panav v'ofen drink alcohol. Some people that are suffering from liver corrosion, from different ailments, they cannot drink alcohol. Alcohol would be poison. Some people that have diabetes, sugar is dangerous to them, so they can't drink grape juice. If you have colitis, you have a problem with hard matzahs, and if you have celiac, you cannot eat any grain. And celiac has different levels. Some people, even one kazayas, will knock them out entirely. A few years ago, there was an elderly person, he had problems in his digestive system and he couldn't eat fiber. So he couldn't eat chasa, he couldn't eat lettuce because it's full of fiber. Horseradish would totally devastate him. He was 85 years old and very frail and very weak. He said, I can't eat tamcha. My suggestion was eat horseradish and let it be, or mefik tamoy. Titchanetze, help me with my English.
Which word? What are we talking about? Chrein? You're talking about
Chrein.
Horseradish. That's of course.
I know it's horseradish. Tchinat achrein.
Grinding.
Right. So grind it and leave it open. Lo kedivrei agra, lo kedivrei Mishnah Brura. Let it, all the sharpkeit should go away. Because the Shoel HaMeshav says, only when the charifus is gone do we really feel that it's moral, that it's mar. But anyway, B'leila Seder, we have the questions of cholim. Does a person need to fall ill to be mekayim a mitzvah? Chuvas Maharam Shik, Reish Shama. Please come in. Just a moment.
Okay, everybody says you can see it's because I call this the silly season for Rabbanim. Next 2 weeks, busiest time of the year. So that's
okay. I'm back.
Okay.
So Chuvas Maharam Shik, Orach Chaim Simarei Samach maintains, as long as you're not a chodesh yesh v'sakona, you need to fall ill to be mekayim any mitzvah. That's the opinion of the Maharam Shik. Avnei Nezer, Yoredei Shin Chof Aleph. Talmud Chover of the Avnei Nezer, Chelkas Yoyev, Kuntris Bedinei Oynes, Simen Daled, Binyan Shlomo, Reb Shlomo Kohen of Vilna Simen Mem Zayin, they maintain you do not need to fall ill to be Mekayim any mitzvahs asay. So in Hilchos Tisha B'Av, we have a Sif in Shulchan Aruch, but maybe that is unique to Dinei Taras. Even a chodesh she'ein v'sakona is Votam Nataniyos, even Tisha B'Av. That is not a general halacha regarding all mitzvahs, definitely not mitzvahs diurais. So the Avnei Nezer and the others prove their point from Siman Tov Reish Nun Vav. Ein odom chayav lebas b'zman la'avad mitzvahs. You don't need to spend a fortune, a lot of money on a mitzvah. Is your health less important than your money? Bal tashchis de gufa odif, Chazal say. And in Shuvas Minchas or Shechele Gimel Simen Mem Beis and Simen Mem Gimel, more in Mem Beis, I have a very lengthy tshuva. And in the conclusion, my maskana is, I'm just giving you the bottom line. Chodesh yesh v'sakona osolo. You cannot, you're not allowed to put your life in jeopardy to be mekayim any mitzvah. Pikuach nefesh is derech halota, aseh kal v'chomer, it's derech hanaseh. Damaging your health in any irreparable way, becoming chronically ill, is also a prohibition. Nofel mishkav, but you're going to bounce back. You're going to be all right. You're going to get a diarrhea. You're going to get a headache. You're potur, but it might be a midas chasidus. If it's just a matter of inconvenience or slight pain, you're chayiv. And that's a sif mefurash. Tofayim beis sif yud. Misha Eino Shoise Yayin Ki Yayin Maziko Chayev Lidchoy Katzmai Velishtois Dalet Koises. Yayin Maziko. And he can't drink wine. The Mishnah Berurah says, Aval Noifel Mishkov Poto Ki Ein Zederech Cherus. So this is a very lengthy discussion, and I brought many sources. But my maskana was, if you're going to be noifel and mishkav, you're going to become ill, you're potem in a mitzvahs. However, if it's not any lasting damage, you're not diminishing your health in the long run, you're allowed to be machmir. You're allowed, but you're not mechuyev. If it's just some suffering inconvenience, by Dalet Koises, Shulchan Aruch says you're chayiv. And this halacha is based on a Bavli and a Yerushalmi. Nedorim Mem Testament based in Bavli, the Gemara talks about Rabbi Yehuda Bar Iloi, and the Gemara says he drank Dalet Koises and he suffered from headaches till Chag Atzeres, 50 days, almost 2 months later, till Shavuos, he had a headache. A headache that lasts for 2 months, I assume, is a severe headache. Similar story told in Yerushalmi, not in Nedorim, but rather in Masechet Pesachim. So the Yerushalmi, in Masechet Pesachim, Samech Tesum and Beis, same story on Rav Yoina. Rav Yoina was an Amoyer, Rav Yehuda Bar Iloi was a Tana. And it's from these halachas that the Beisayis proves chayav lidchoy katzmoi. So it all depends on the level of pain, suffering. So the problems I mentioned would be real medical issues. Some people have slight celiac, cause them some stomach cramps. Some people have severe celiac, and they're not allowed to eat grain. So if you have a milder condition, you could eat one kazayas, a kazayas matzah. And b'shas atchak, I am makel that a kazayas is kishmoy keinu, a kazayas, the size of an olive. I make an alamichya if I eat a small piece of cake as big as an olive. Not the tiny little olives. I would say I like to be a machmir, so I say a big olive. But an olive is an olive. And that's the Ikar Shir Kazayis, especially if you have celiac, if you're ill, you could be makel and even say the broch. So I mentioned various medical conditions. Some people can't drink grape juice, others can't drink wine. Others have difficulty eating matzah. Me'ikar adin. If it's just a slight inconvenience, some minor pain, minor cramps, if you're going to be sick, you're poto. But if it's not, if it's going to go away, and you know it's not, it doesn't leave any lasting damage or harm to your health, you're allowed to be machmir. But you're not allowed to be machmir if even in the most remote way, it might jeopardize your life or cause lasting and chronic illness. Those are the klolim regarding choyle. I don't have time today to get into a lengthy discussion. The person taking me to the next shir in Beis Shemesh just walked into my house and he's sitting on the other side of the table. You know, this is a very busy day. I still have 2 more today. I'm going to Beis Shemesh and then 11 o'clock I have a Zoom Chabura. So this is a very busy day. So we started off with the various Divit Menogim, Sephardi and Ashkenazi, and then just briefly mentioning the question of a choila, the kiyum mitzvahs, v'oid chazoin lamoid. Reb Shlomo, do we have a shir next Sunday?
We do. Well,
so Be'ezes Hashem next Sunday, I'll have more time, and I'll also give some divrei chizuk l'choved Yom Tov. What is the sugya of next week, Reb Shlomo?
We'll discuss there. What is the Rav saying in Shabbat Gadol? The drasha?